Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Fulbright Teacher Exchanges webinar for U.S. teacher applicants. My name is Kayla Gadalisha, and I'm a program officer. On behalf of the Bureau of Educational and Cultural Affairs at the U.S. Department of State, I'm pleased to welcome you all to this evening session about getting started with your Fulbright Teacher Exchange application. Thanks for making time this evening to join us. Please note that this evening's session will focus only on opportunities for U.S. educators, which means we will discuss programs open to educators who live and work in the United States, a U.S. territory, or with the Department of Defense education activity. So if you're a teacher in another country, please visit our website for more information about opportunities you may qualify for. The program is FulbrightTeacherExchanges.org. That's the website where you can find information about those programs. And Kelsey has just dropped that in the chat. You can also contact the U.S. Embassy or Fulbright Commission in your country for more information about those opportunities. So throughout this evening session, you'll hear from program staff about the application process for U.S. teacher programs and components of each opportunity for Fulbright exchanges for U.S. teachers. We'll be joined by some alumni of the Fulbright Teacher Exchanges who will share their experiences and recommendations with you so you can hear directly what it's like to participate in these programs and get some ideas for how you might go about applying. Lastly, we'll have time for some Q&A with our alumni. So without further ado, I'll turn it over to Mark and we'll get started. Thanks again.
Thank you very much, Kayla. All right, so my name is Mark, and I am a program officer working on the Fulbright Teacher Exchanges. To start things off, let's review the basics of the Fulbright Teacher Exchanges. Throughout this webinar, we'll discuss 4 different Fulbright programs that you may apply to as a K-12 educator. We'll go over the differences in each, but first I would like to share the similarities. So we'll start with what is included. In each Fulbright Teacher Exchange, your award will include round-trip airfare to and from the host country, visa support, if applicable to your situation, support in accommodations, meals, and incidental allowances for the duration of the program. And this may look different depending on how long you're abroad. Also includes accident and sickness medical coverage. This is supplemental to your regular health insurance. And as part of your program, you'll be provided with professional development opportunities, and these may take the shape of online courses, support in conducting research, seminars, or other opportunities at an international university, and so on. And lastly, as alumni of Fulbright Teacher Exchanges, you will join a network of global educators, and you will be eligible to apply for alumni grants to enhance and sustain your engagement in this community. So each Fulbright Teacher Exchange for U.S. educators has a competitive selection process for applicants. The application itself varies slightly between each program, but regardless of which you choose, you must meet a certain set of eligibility criteria. To be eligible, you must be a citizen of the United States, reside and work in the United States or a U.S. territory, or work at a school associated with the Department of Defense education activity, hold at least a bachelor's degree, have a minimum of 3 years of experience in a full-time student-facing role in a U.S. K-12 educational institution or school district, and be currently employed in such a role. For these last 2 points about employment, I'll note that eligible educators include, for example, classroom teachers, guidance counselors, curriculum coordinators, special education coordinators, media specialists, librarians, gifted and talented coordinators, and others who spend a minimum of 50% of their contracted hours in a student-facing role. And just please side note that the instructional requirement, the student-facing role, is applicable to the non-administrator applicants. Administrators who apply to Fulbright seminars for school administrators are subject to somewhat alternate eligibility requirements. So applications are reviewed by an independent panel of experts according to a rubric of specific evaluation criteria. In an effort to reflect the diversity of the United States and global society, the Bureau of Educational and Cultural Affairs programs, funding, and other activities encourage the involvement of applicants from traditionally underrepresented groups, including women, racial and ethnic minorities, and people with disabilities. Opportunities are open to people regardless of their race, ethnicity, national origin, sex, age, religion, geographic location, socioeconomic status, disability, sexual orientation, or gender identity. The U.S. Department of State's Bureau of Educational and Cultural Affairs is committed to fairness, equity, and inclusion. And we invite you to visit our website to read more about these eligibility criteria and to learn more about preferred qualifications for each individual program. So if you have specific questions on your individual eligibility, please email us at the contact.fulbrightteachers@irx.org email address. So now we will talk about the 4 programs currently available to US K-12 educators: Fulbright Teachers for Global Classrooms program, our 2 distinguished awards, Fulbright Distinguished Awards in Teaching Research program, and the short-term program, as well as the Fulbright Seminars for School Administrators program. So I will start things off by telling you about the Fulbright Teachers for Global Classrooms program. This program is unique as it is a year-long professional learning opportunity with a short-term exchange component. Its aim is to build teachers' capacity to develop their students' global competence. The program begins with a cohort-based global education online course in the fall. This 10-week course combines simultaneous and self-paced coursework led by experts in the field of global education. It is a thoughtful and rigorous experience with opportunities built in for practical application and collaboration with other educators. Following the online course is a symposium, which brings together the full cohort for a workshop to build networks, collaborate further, and develop strategies to enhance global learning. The year-long Fulbright Teachers for Global Classrooms program, has an international field experience in the spring or summer for 2 to 3 weeks. This is a group travel experience and provides an opportunity to experience another country's history, education system, and culture. And these experiences include classroom visits, interactions with teachers and administrators, and opportunities to co-teach in host schools. The cohort-based model of this program allows time for reflection with your colleagues before returning to the United States. And the last component of this program is the Global Education Guide, a capstone project. This capstone serves as a resource for your local school community to build global awareness and mutual understanding. It is a tool for you to share your experience with colleagues, to facilitate professional learning workshops, and engage students and community members with your Fulbright experience. In order to apply for the Fulbright Teachers for Global Classrooms program, you'll complete a series of essay questions related to your experience with global education and how your school community would benefit from your participation in this program. And with that, I would like to invite my colleague, Peter.
Hi, everyone. Thanks, Mark. This is Peter from the Fulbright Teacher Exchanges team, and it's my pleasure to talk to you about the second opportunity for U.S. educators, the Fulbright Distinguished Awards in Teaching Research program. In the Fulbright Distinguished Awards in Teaching Research program, educators spend 3 to 6 months overseas collaborating with colleagues and pursuing research as part of a self-directed individual inquiry project. There are no restrictions on the range of inquiry project focuses that an applicant can propose in their application. In the past, for example, inquiry project themes have included STEM, global competence, the arts and music, pedagogical approaches, learning management, language education, social studies, mathematics, social justice, and social emotional learning, among other topics. So you can see the range of topics is very broad. If selected for the research program, participants will first gather in Washington, D.C., or virtually in this COVID world, for a professional learning orientation workshop. At this workshop, participants meet with one another in their cohort and meet with program alumni to further develop strategies for their inquiry project design and implementation while abroad. The main component of this program is the 3 to 6 month international experience in a host country, starting in either the fall or spring semester. Unlike other cohort-based models like the one my colleague Mark just spoke about, participants in this program travel on their own to their host country where they pursue independent research into their inquiry project focus with guidance from a faculty advisor at a host institution in country. They will also take courses at their host institution pertaining to the professional goals and the focus of their inquiry project. In addition to that, to the support of the host institution and the faculty advisor, participants will also have a US-based educational consultant supporting them remotely throughout the program. As part of the application process for the research program, you must prepare an inquiry project proposal for the specific country to which you'd like to travel to and carry out your research. If you're accepted, the Fulbright Teacher Exchanges team in the United States and in your host country will identify the host institution for you, connect you to a community of in-country educators, provide logistical support, and support you in achieving your inquiry project research objectives. So next, I'll move on to speaking about another program. This one is the Fulbright Distinguished Awards in Teaching short-term program, the third opportunity for US educators that we'll be talking about tonight. So similar to the research program that I just discussed, the short-term program is also an opportunity for individual travel experience. It differs in that participants travel overseas for only 2 to 6 weeks instead of months, and spend that time working in a consultant role, supporting a specific education project at an identified host institution. The projects at the host institutions are identified in advance by the in-country US Embassy and or Fulbright Commission and are designed to meet the specific needs of that host institution. If interested, you'll be able to apply directly for many specific projects that'll be made available to the public when the application is now announced later this year. These projects will be accompanied by a project description that will include specific information related to the expectations of the project, language requirements, if applicable, and the specific time frame and duration of the project. Once selected for the short-term program, you'll participate in an online pre-departure and skill building orientation. And upon arrival in your host country, you'll have a host country specific safety and security and educational briefing, and then travel to the host institution where you'll start working immediately with colleagues at that host institution to fulfill the needs of the project. So projects may include, for example, developing specific trainings in different subject areas for teachers at that school, writing academic curricula, supporting pre-service or in-service educators, collaborating potentially with university faculty to update their teacher training processes, etc. For examples of other projects, you can visit the Fulbright Teacher Exchanges website and peruse those other examples there. And just to note that the short-term program participants are essentially serving as consultants to their host institutions. So this is a great opportunity to inform education policy and practice in an area of your expertise. And we encourage you to apply when the application is launched later this year. Thank you. Back to you, Mark.
Thank you, Peter. So for the final program that we're going to be discussing tonight, it is Fulbright Seminars for School Administrators, formerly known as Fulbright Leaders for Global Schools. It's the newest program in this suite and differs from the rest in that it is specifically for K-12 school and district administrators, including principals, assistant principals, superintendents, assistant superintendents, etc. The participants travel as a group for approximately 10 days to learn about best educational practices in another country with the goal of improving outcomes for all students. And participants in Fulbright Seminars for School Administrators engage in briefings, panel discussions, and events to better understand the education system of the host country, and to explore educational and professional topics of relevance to school administrators. Program activities may include visits to schools and other educational institutions in order to observe and share best educational practices. Participants also participate in conferences and roundtable discussions, as well as networking events with education professionals. So please stay tuned for more information about the timing of the launch of the Fulbright Seminars for School Administrators application and program structure. And with that, I am going to invite my colleague, Kelsey, to go from here.
Thank you so much, Mark and Peter, both for the details on each of those opportunities. The slide you all see now contains a brief overview and the distinctions between these 4 Fulbright Teacher Exchanges for U.S. educators. To quickly recap, on the Fulbright Distinguished Awards in Teaching Research Program, you will complete an individual inquiry project of your own choosing. You'll spend between 3 and 6 months abroad researching and completing this inquiry project. One important distinction that I want to mention about this program is that due to the extended nature of the exchange, dependents are eligible to travel with you, as opposed to our other more short-term exchange offerings. Our applications for the Fulbright Research Program is currently open, and those are due by February 14th. So it's coming up quickly, but you still have time to apply. Next, the Fulbright Distinguished Awards in Teaching Short-Term Program gives an opportunity for educators to act as consultants on specific time-bound projects at an educational institution abroad. There are projects in several disciplines available, and the details of these will be released with the application, which is forthcoming. Next, the Fulbright Teachers for Global Classrooms program is a cohort-based training and professional learning opportunity that takes place over the course of a year. It includes a graduate level online course in global education and a short-term group-led experience abroad. Again, this application is currently open and applications are due March 14th. And lastly, the program that Mark just mentioned, Fulbright Seminars for School Administrators, is our opportunity for school and district level admins to learn and share best educational practices across borders. And we'll keep reiterating our website. If you want to read more details about each of these programs and determine which one is the best fit for you, we invite and encourage you to visit our website at fulbrightteacherexchanges.org. Next slide, please. So at this point in our session, I am pleased to begin our panel discussion with alumni who have participated in these programs. So I'd like to welcome our alumni to turn on their cameras and say hello. Tonight we have Michelle Boger, Chris Huff, Ketlin Joseph, and Satoya Wright joining us. I'll give you all a moment. There you all are. So we have several questions already planned and quite a few submitted by our attendees in advance. But to start things off, can each of you introduce yourselves and share briefly about where you're from, what you do here in the United States, and tell us about your Fulbright program experience? Or maybe just go, we've got you alphabetically by last name here, so I'm going to call on Michelle to go first.
Great. Yeah, thank you. So I went on the Distinguished Awards in Teaching Semester Research Program. At the time, I was a classroom teacher in Brooklyn, New York, and also working on as a lead teacher there. I have since moved to Atlanta, another urban center, and I'm a classroom teacher here. For my project, I went to Columbia, and I did research on how collectivist culture influences a school environment and instructional practices there.
Thanks, Michelle. Chris?
Hi, everyone, and congratulations on taking the first step towards changing the trajectory of your career, if not your life. My name is Chris Huff. I am a school administrator. Currently, I am the curriculum director at Waverly Community Schools. We're in Lansing, Michigan. When I participated in the program, I was the principal at Waverly High School, a school of about 1,000 students. Again, we're in the capital of Michigan in Lansing. We visited Finland under what was known as the Leaders for Global Schools program. But I also was involved with some of our teaching staff, participated in the Teachers for Global Classrooms program. And I was able to participate in the symposium a couple times and serve as a panelist there as well. And like I said, to start off the introduction, this is going to change your career, if not your life. So congratulations on taking that step. And I'm sure we'll have a chance to talk a little bit more later. But excited for you and the possibilities that await.
Thanks, Chris. Ketlin?
Firstly, I am a little jealous coming after Mr. Huff because when he says that this is a possibility to change your career and possibly your life, there's no word, there's no word. So I am Ketlin Joseph. At the time, I was a classroom teacher and team leader and director of equity in a Queens public school. And I had the honor of being able to do short-term teaching. I was in Ghana for 6 weeks, studying how we can increase female interest in the STEM fields. I was a science teacher, so that fit right in line. And I have transitioned also to North Carolina. So I'm currently in Fayetteville, North Carolina, where I'm also still teaching. And to say that this experience shifted my entire perspective towards education and the ability for us to create global partnerships and really support each other in best practices is to be the best understatement. So congratulations for coming, and I look forward to speaking to you all soon.
Thanks. And last but not least, Satoya, tell us about yourself.
Hi, so my name is Satoya. Originally from the Midwest, from Ohio, but when I did my Teachers for Global Classroom in 2018, I believe, I went to Chiclayo, Peru. At the time, I was a high school mathematics teacher at an all boys public charter school in Philadelphia. I am still in the city of Philadelphia, but I'm currently at a private independent school.
Thank you so much. I love hearing how your career trajectories have changed since your Fulbright programs. All of you seem to have had little shifts and moves. So I think for the rest of this conversation, Mark, I think we can take down the slides at this point and just focus on all of you. The first question I want to ask, 2 questions really, is what inspired or motivated you to apply, and why did you choose your program in particular? And maybe I'll mix up the order and ask Satoya to go first for this one.
Sure. Let me try to be as concise as possible. So I've been teaching mathematics for 10 years. And what I've noticed that in my experience, a lot of the professional development or just opportunities were geared towards like the languages or the history classes, and mathematics was kind of siloed, like it's just numbers. Students are going to leave and do math, and so I felt kind of like stuck because like I wasn't a new teacher, so there weren't that many opportunities that were kind of handed my way. So I just did a lot of research on my own, and I realized that as a high school math teacher, by the time a lot of the students arrived to me, they were already disengaged from the content because it was presented in a manner that is not contextualized, and it's like an esoteric topic. Either you're good at math or you're not. Either you get it or you don't. And so I love math, which is a whole different topic, but I really believe that you can read the world and be an active, engaged citizen based off mathematics. You can read mathematics and draw parallels and understandings and make connections the same way you could if you read a good book. And so literally on a prep one day, I just was Googling, like, please, anybody out there, help me. I want to enhance my pedagogy. I had to start reading some new literature, and I was like, oh, I'm not alone. And so I just wanted to improve myself. I feel like I'm a lifelong classroom teacher. Like I want to be the person 50 years in, I'm still in the classroom, but because I'm not a recent graduate, that doesn't mean I don't have room to grow. And math is such a critical subject, and so many students are disengaged from it. And so if we're really going to create engaged, conscious citizens to be prepared for the global and knowledge economy, then I need to step my game up and see how I can. Let's do that. I think there was a part 2, but I'm sorry, I can go down my rabbit hole and I forgot. So.
No, I think you nailed it. Thanks, Satoya. Ketlin, what about you? What inspired and motivated you to apply, and why the program that you chose?
So first and foremost, I am true blue citizen of the world. Like, I love travel and I love education. So my administrator and I, all of my administrators and myself, were actually really close. And I've spoken to them about these big dreams of having global programs, really encouraging young children, especially children of color, to travel, because I realize I love my passport. She gets used. I say, I talk about my passport like her, we have a bond. But that expands my, just my view of the world, just the way that we interact. So anything international, I was excited. So when this came across actually my administrator's desk, she said, you can't pass up this chance. You teach science. And the more I thought about it, the more I realized I am a graduate of an HBCU, Spelman College, which is an all-female, historically Black college. And my favorite science teachers, those that pushed me, were females. But as I progressed, I was steadily in the room alone. I would be in science research labs by myself as the only female, especially female of color. So when I read through the program about increasing female interest in the STEM fields, it's something that aligned near and dear to my heart, because as a female of color in the States, teaching students of color in New York City, it was amazing to me how many of them were not interested in the sciences until we were together. And I taught juniors and seniors. I taught chemistry and biochem. Nobody likes it, nobody. But getting to see someone like them that related to them really inspired them. So the program aligned with my values. I had been to different countries in Africa before, and I do find that I really, really, really want to eventually create these global citizens. It just everything. So I'm on my rabbit hole too, because I get, but those are the reasons that I decided to apply.
That's great. It sounds like that short-term program was just made for you. Sounds like it was a perfect fit. Chris, what about you? Tell us about your motivation.
As a school administrator, I quickly became very disillusioned with the focus on test scores and what that was doing to our students. We had all these classes on how to get a good ACT score or a SAT score, and it quickly dawned on me that we're not really preparing kids for the future. We are putting kids through this practice. We're spending an hour of their time every single day, that the outcome is only a one-time benefit of the ACT or the SAT. And what they were learning was not applicable to their lives. It wasn't applicable to anything but the SAT. Mm-hmm. And that was a huge disservice to our students. So the motivation for me and for the teachers who end up participating in some of the Fulbright programs was how do we help our students polish skills that will benefit them long-term in a society that is increasingly global. Our kids aren't just going to stay in Lansing, Michigan, their whole lives. With the internet, they have the opportunity to connect anywhere in the world. And we started to shift away from, the classes that are focused on test scores, and even talking about test scores at all, frankly, and focusing on the 21st century skills of being collaborative and being critical thinkers. Excuse me. Sorry. And the biggest payoff came through tragedy, through our pandemic that we're living through right now. All those things that we had been prepping our students for, to be creative, to be a problem solver, to communicate broadly, all those things came to fruition during this challenge that we're still going through, an experience that a test score is not going to help kids, or hasn't helped kids be successful in. So the general motivation came in, how do we help our kids do better? How do we help our kids be successful outside of the four walls of the high school?
Thanks, Chris. Michelle, what about you?
So at the time, I was part of a leadership program at my school that was looking at racial equity work, and we were really kind of diving into the data and looking at how our students were performing, broken down by different demographics. And my school is about 50% ESL students, about 80% Latino at the time. And I'm a classroom teacher, but I'm also an ESL teacher. So I've always had at least, usually almost the whole class, or at least more than half of my class are ESL students. And I just felt that no matter what our curriculum, I felt we had a good curriculum, we have talented teachers, and still, there's a group of students who are not sort of meeting our expectations, or not, kind of achieving in the way that we'd want to. And I just felt like there was a missing piece. We read a book actually as part of the program called Culturally Responsive Teaching in the Brain by Zaretta Hammond, great book. And it just it also referenced some other books that I started reading more. And I just feel like there's this missing piece about community, about school culture, that is a big part for these students who come from a different culture, and particularly a more community-oriented culture. And so I really was inspired to kind of go find this missing piece, I guess. And like I said, most of my students were Latino at the time, and Colombia is actually a highly collectivist culture, so that's one reason I chose Colombia. I had also been there before, and so I knew some about it. I had a couple of contacts and that kind of thing. Yeah, but that's mostly what inspired me.
So my next question is open for whoever wants to jump in, and you all sort of started touching on this in your introductions already. How do you see your Fulbright experience of fitting into your career as an educator? And perhaps, you all talked about changes in your roles. Do you think Fulbright and your experience played a part in that? How has it shaped your career since coming back?
I don't mind going first. So I'm still a classroom teacher, and we'll see down the road, how it might change things in the future. But it definitely it fit into, because I am passionate about this population of students, ESL students, their achievement levels, creating it's very difficult to come in, as an immigrant into this country and into an educational system. And so it fits with everything, sort of, I guess, my passions as far as working with English language learners and making the school environment the best and most positive that we can for that group of students. And like I said, I had a lead teacher role, and I've had opportunities to be able to sort of give workshops around school culture and working with these students. So I think Fulbright has, facilitated some of that, and hopefully will continue to do that in the future.
I know one thing the opportunity did for me was it really allowed me to find what I feel at this moment is my forever school. I have bounced around to so many schools and it's not quite it. And so it really helped me do kind of an internal change and kind of change my pedagogical beliefs, but more importantly, my practices, because I feel like my beliefs always align, but it was very difficult to materialize because I really didn't know the how-to prior to this experience. And so I found myself being in schools, trying to articulate my hopes for the classroom and the students, and then admin we don't really know, we're on the fence about it. So it was in a constant place of fighting to kind of cultivate, this experience that I wanted my students to have. But after the program, I just felt I did a complete 180. I felt like a new teacher all over again. And so my language changed, my lessons changed, my interaction, connections, and relationships with students and families and stakeholders changed. And then I started saying there has to be an institution or community out there that is aligned, and I don't have to fight so hard. And I feel like I was able to find that because this program was a catalyst and help mold and change me and help me be the person I needed to be in the places that I wanted to be in.
I love that so much. Y'all are making me want to get back into the classroom now and go on a Fulbright Teacher Exchange. Kellen, did you want to share too?
I do. I want to respect time, but I do also want to say that for me, because I did work in a consultant role with other educators, more so than working directly with students, I began to understand policy and educational models from so many different perspectives. And it was interesting because they have a lot of desires to move to similar to where we do more project-based, such and such, but I found myself able to build collaborations and really find some of the leaders in that country and where the trajectory, I'll be really transparent, the trajectory of my career, I would like to involve creating those kind of global partnerships. I know Fulbright does them, but for the everyday who feels like there's something that they're missing, figuring out how to do it even more fluidly directly with them, but the desire for them to connect. And it showed me that really we do all just want the same things for our kids. We want our kids to be strong thinkers. We want our kids to be community leaders. We want our kids. It felt like it was the message that I needed, that this was possible and it wasn't just a vision. So I'm praying that comes to fruition. That's all.
Yeah. So I do want to shift gears a little bit here because most of the people joining us on this webinar perhaps already have an application in progress. They know what Fulbright's about, they've heard about it, they're interested, they've taken that first step. So I'm curious if you all can put yourselves back in the shoes of your past self when you were applying. What part of the application was most challenging for you? And what advice would you have for someone applying today to get through that challenging part? And again, I will open up to whoever wants to jump in.
I'll start since I didn't jump in on the last one.
Great.
For me, I was trying to demonstrate, and on the other end, also as a reviewer, looking for people who are going to apply what they learned in the broadest way possible. So what is your impact going to be after you participate in these experiences? How will you apply what you've learned? One of the things I came back with, I remember on the airplane, I had a notepad and I made a spectrum. And on one end, I have things that will never work in the US. And on the other end, I had things that will definitely work in the US. So just kind of thinking systematically on how to apply what you've learned and how that's going to impact your students is hugely important in my perspective.
What other advice for the application stage?
I would say being clear, similar to what Mr. Huff said about your intention, because I think personally that was my hardest part of the application, making the written intention very clear and specific. The concepts were general, but why this program? Why do I want to research this? How is it a personal connection to you? Because even in doing the round where we spoke to interviewers, it was really about, well, why you? There are lots of applicants. Why are you personally connected to this vision or this program?
Yeah, absolutely. And I'll note that, an interview isn't necessarily part of every application process for that short term. No, it's good for that short term program. Sometimes for the research program too, an interview is requested by the host institution, just since it is such an individual experience for exactly the reasons you stated. Why you? Why are you the best candidate? So I'm glad you mentioned that. Michelle, were you about to jump in?
Yeah, I was just going to say a brief thing. Since the research program is more of an extended project, I think that was the hardest part. Is really, they're kind of really asking you to develop your proposal, like really with the project that you're planning to do, and sort of have, have it be based on some literature and some resources. And so it really is a research proposal. And I think because it's an independent project, I do think it needs to be pretty well thought out. And of course, once you get there, you're going to tweak it, you're going to make changes based on the environment and your context. But I do think it is important to have a pretty clear vision of what you're interested, as Ketlin said, what you're interested in studying, how you think you're going to go about that, kind of the basis for it and all that. So that was the hardest part, but I think it was a really important part to think through clearly beforehand.
Can you actually, that leads me into a question I was going to ask you later. Can you share a little bit more about how you approached your inquiry project and how you kind of came up with that for the application?
Yeah, sure. So as I mentioned before, I read a book, and then that kind of led me to another book. So I'd already done a little bit of reading around my topic area about collectivist cultures and that kind of thing. So I knew I wanted to do a lot of observations, because when you're talking about school culture, you really just need to see it, observe it, feel it, talk to people about why they do what they do in their classrooms. So that's kind of where the project originated, but it was through kind of reading and, you know, obviously thinking about what would have the greatest impact on my school. Like I said, through data that I observed at my school, I felt like we had strong instruction. I knew we had strong teachers. We had a lot of professional development, but like something was missing. And I just really wanted to delve deeper into that one aspect of school culture and also student culture and how those two kind of, you know, interact and how we could support them. I do think later on, I had a few ideas for like data collection, like I said, observations. I wanted to interview some people. I already had thought those things through. Those things were definitely added to once I got into my project, and the advisor, the Fulbright advisor who supports you on your project was really helpful in helping to really direct the research and like the best ways to triangulate your data and, you know, all this kind of stuff. Mm-hmm. But that's how I developed the initial process. Hopefully that answers it.
Yeah. Thanks for talking through. We're getting a lot of questions on the side here around that inquiry project, as that's a pretty unique aspect of that program. I've also got some questions specific to the Fulbright Teachers for Global Classrooms program. So Satoya, if I can put you on the spot next. Can you speak to what you gained from going through that experience with a cohort? Because that's a really unique thing about the Teachers for Global Classrooms program, right? Is you're in there with a bunch of other educators. So what do you think you gained from that setup?
Sure. Well, my cohort, we were all so different that it really affirmed that you can do this work in any environment with any, you know, group of students. Of course, every situation is unique. You have to make some tweaks here or there, but that it can be done anywhere. And I just learned so much from my cohort. Well, why don't you try this? I realized that some of the people were living in Philly with me. I had no clue. It was also powerful. I stayed in contact with one young lady in particular. And so we are able to have, like, when we're designing our units, like, let's have our students converse, like, let's have our students collaborate on a project together. Let's have them kind of edit, you know, evaluate, reason, critique each other's responses and conjectures and what have you. It just really built long-standing relationships. And so it's just like the knowledge enhanced times 10. You know, people are on different journeys and it's just like, oh my gosh, have you tried this? Did you consider this? Mm-hmm. And so it just really challenged and pushed a lot of my thinking and affirmed me at the same time. And ultimately it benefited my students, like when they can say, oh, we're working with the school in North Philly today, and just, you know, just so many connections. And I think another thing it proved, one of my big takeaways specifically from the online coursework, it was just like local then global, local then global. And so going to Peru, it was like a great global experience and drawing parallels, but being with my cohort, we really talked a lot about what is the local impact, and then how can we expand? How can we start something here at home, make connections here with each other, and then expand that out to a more macro level?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, one thing I really love about that program is just how diverse the cohort of educators is. We've got new teachers who are, you know, in their 4th or 5th year in the classroom, and we've got veteran teachers who've been doing it for 20, 30 years. We've got all disciplines, all different types of communities. It's a really great like cross section of educators across America, I think. We've got one other question. Natalie, who loves Philly and taught in South Philly for 2 years, gives you a shout out there. She wondered if you or any of the panelists, I think, had any suggestions for writing a standout essay, because in each of these applications, you have to answer some essay questions. What would you all say are tips for writing a strong essay?
I know for myself is really draw on the uniqueness of your school and speak to that. Like, you know, that's the only experience, you know, my school, it's the only, it's all Black, all boy charter school in Philly, boys Latin, you know, it was the only one. And so at first, to be honest, I was, you know, I didn't know too much about Fulbright before like my Google search. And I was like, oh, wow, this is legit. This is a serious program. Like, are they looking for like inner city urban? I don't know. I was a little intimidated. And I was like, you know what, the best thing to do is be honest, speak for your own experience. And that's what I would just be honest and be specific about what's unique to your situation and how it will enhance your community for the better. So that's what I'd say.
I'd like to piggyback on that a bit too. Again, going back to the uniqueness of the school. Our school is a very diverse, it's one of the most diverse schools in the state of Michigan. But what I've seen from the networking experience is a huge impact in our least diverse schools in the state of Michigan. I remember one time a administrator was asking a question about, well, how can this benefit me? Our school is 99% white. We are in a rural area. We are surrounded by cornfields. And one of the most enriching things that we've done on behalf of our teachers who participated in TGC or TCG was we started an exchange program with schools in our area where we had rural schools and urban schools come together. We're separated by 40 minutes. But just the impact of our kids going to a dairy farm and stepping in cow pies and seeing cows artificially inseminated, or those students coming to our school and learning different languages and participating in a culture fair, just had a great impact over just the course of 2 days, those 2-day exchanges. We had kids hugging each other and crying, and they're trying to set up sports events where we'd play each other. So I would just also recommend that the least diverse schools or the smaller schools, those are probably the schools where this is the most needed and the most impactful. So I just want to put a little buzz in the ear if you're thinking, wow, my school's not dynamic. Well, if that's how you feel, then this is your opportunity to make it dynamic.
Well said. Michelle or Killen, is there anything you would add around writing essays and making yourself stand out?
I think I agree with everything they said. And work with your administrator, because I believe that is a conversation. Mine is an amazing writer, so I talked through a lot of it after writing it, and lean on your team.
Mm-hmm. That's a great segue actually into another question we've had come in, and I'd be interested in all of your perspectives, and Chris, especially yourself as a school administrator. What tips would you all have with engaging your administration in conversations around participating in a Fulbright Teacher Exchange, especially for some of the longer term programs where you might need to take some leave from school? How did you approach those conversations, and what advice would you have for applicants?
I'll just start from the administrative perspective, and please feel free to contact me or have your administrator contact me, because I'll tell them the story of what has happened for our school. One of the unintended consequences is that we created a niche for ourselves in our area in the state, and this became a PR tool. We can very confidently say that we have a world-class staff, and that we offer our kids experiences they're not going to get at any other school. One time I went to observe one of our teachers, and I go in the classroom, I sit down, and these kids are typing away at their computer. I'm like, what are you doing today? And they said, oh, we're communicating with our pen pals. I'm like, pen pals? That's like a elementary thing. It's from the 70s and 80s. And I said, well, why don't you show me what you're doing? Well, they're recording videos of themselves. They are sharing them in a Google Drive with students in Senegal, Africa. So they have an exchange going on that, again, that doesn't happen in every school. And the word kind of got out. In Michigan, we have schools of choice. So if a student or parents are not happy with their school, they can go to another school. And like I said, our school is about 1,000 students. One year we had 174 brand new students. So the word kind of got out that we were doing something special. The word got out that we were offering some things that our community schools were offering. And we had about an almost 20% increase in enrollment, which created some problems, but good problems. And every administrator likes to have high enrollment. So one of the unintended consequences or outcomes of this will be that you're going to have a really good story. You're going to have a really good narrative. You're going to impact the culture of the school in a very positive way. And all those things are really hard to say no to if you have an administrator that's on the fence.
Thanks, Chris.
I might add that, yeah, I think if you approach it from this sense of how is this gonna enhance the school, kind of what Chris is speaking to, administrators, tend to respond well to that. How is this gonna, improve our school, improve our teaching, improve our achievement, that kind of thing. Fortunately for me, a teacher in our school had done a Fulbright before. It was a different program completely, but just having that name, in the ear of the principal kind of helped them be familiar. So I think I would go prepared if that's not the case at your school, with being able to explain really what it is. Kind of assume that they probably haven't heard of it, don't know. And then I would also say, to be flexible as far as like a research program as a whole semester, several months, try to work with them as far as like what they feel like is going to be the best way to cover these months, or, if you're not going to be there, that kind of thing. I think all those things help to, get them on board and understand what the project is and the purpose, and also what you want to do with it when you come back. All those kinds of things I think help when you talk about.
I know I'll speak from the end. First of all, shout out to you, Chris, for being such a cool administrator that's ready to go with it. I love that. That was not my experience initially, which I get, admin, they're in a different position, different needs, that everyone's trying to answer to someone. But I know from my experience, what is that after I came back and completed the program, I had a joke with my friend. I said, first they ask you why, then they ask you how. And that's exactly what happened. So when they come into my classroom, they're like, is this a math classroom? Are we in the right classroom? But I think a lot of the time is that I had to be willing to take that risk to kind of look crazy, for the lack of a better word. But what was going on is that they noticed just like some small micro data at first. Okay, well, we see that in Satoya's classroom, we're having less students sent out of the math block, which is not, the norm. We have an increase in the homework being completed, and we see some increase in some test scores. And so I know from my experience, I had to kind of prove like this does work. I had to do my own research. I had to like stay up longer for my lesson plans and making sure that the standards are aligned with, my SDG goals or real world, phenomenon. And once my admin saw that and was like, their ear was open. And then I was like, well, you get to go on the symposium, everything's paid for. That wasn't the main motivation, but when they went there and got to really see everything unfold, that further legitimized me and what I wanted to do. And they had like, oh, this is Fulbright. This is what it is. This is how we can use to enhance our community. And so after that, I was able to facilitate PDs. They were given teachers elective stipends to do like electives around these global things. So also I would just say, hey, we all would love a Chris, but if you don't have a Chris, then don't be afraid, within your means to take a risk and, do the work. And I believe it will yield great results for you and your school community.
So Kelsey, it looks like we have time for one more question.
Thanks, Mark. See, my timekeeper there. I knew we wouldn't run over. I just want to comment, this is not the first panel I've been on with Chris, and where the remarks have been made that, there's not a Chris in every school, and we wish there was. So appreciate administrators with that kind of support for sure. So my last question that I want to open up, and this could be about the application process, it could be about your experience as a whole, kind of whichever direction you want to take it. but this was a question that was shared with us ahead of the webinar, and that is, what is one thing you realize in hindsight that you wish you had known before you left or before you started your experience? I know I didn't prep this one ahead of time.
So I'll say that one thing I would have wished that I realized, the program I did, maybe I think one of the shortest international, it was only 6 weeks, but to realize it was only 6 weeks, it flew by. There was so much to do. I wish that I had prepped a little more. We got so much done, but I'm already trying to find flights to go back this summer to work with them. Their school years align a little bit differently because it felt like we scratched the surface. So for me, yeah, I wish that I realized how short 6 weeks was going to fly by.
That's very true. It goes by so quickly.
I don't think of this as a regret, but what I didn't know that I know now that's been hugely impactful is that this is a family of support for not only every step of the way on the front end, but every step of the way on the back end too. So there is a very, very strong network of alumni, of folks who work for Fulbright, who work for IREX. It's a very tight-knit group, and there's going to be benefits that you will experience well beyond your program.
Well, I think that is a great note to end on. So thank you all so much for sharing your experiences. I always wish we had more time. I love speaking with our alumni. It's so good to see you all. I'm going to make one more plug, as I know we will, again in the chat, to visit our website. Not only is there a lot of information about the programs themselves, but if you want to explore more alumni stories like the ones you've heard just now, we have a lot of profiles up in the news and impact section of our website. Some great profiles of alumni, other examples of what folks have done with their Fulbright Teacher Exchanges. So if you're looking for more inspiration and advice, please check out that part of our website. But again, thank you all so much. Appreciate you taking the time and appreciate everything you're doing in your schools. So Mark and Kayla, back to you.
Kelsey, I just want to note the additional opportunities on the screen here. So please make sure and follow us on social media at Fulbright Teach, in particular on Facebook and Twitter. Note the teacher suite of massive open online courses that are free for all K-12 educators, and also putting a save the date half a year ahead of time, but get ready for the Global Teaching Dialogue in July. But I want to say thank you to all of you for coming and our alumni for being here. And I will turn it over to Kayla to close us out.
Yes, thank you so much on behalf of the U.S. Department of State and the Bureau of Educational and Cultural Affairs. Thanks for your time. Thanks for your interest in these programs. I know they're competitive programs and sometimes it can be a little overwhelming to hear about all these amazing stories from alums who've done great things following their experiences. Please don't be intimidated. We look forward to reading your applications, and again, I appreciate your interest. Thanks for the hard work you're doing in classrooms around the United States every day. I know this is a difficult year. We've been saying that for a while. So thank you all so much for your time, for your attention. Best of luck to those of you who choose to submit, and have a great evening.